not for long. One small voice speaking with the values we were taught as children.
Morning, my name is Dee Harris, and I thought I'd share just a bit with you today of what I'm doing. I'm going to be soldering some pieces that I call the hand of recovery. Recovery is really important to me. AA has been instrumental in this new life that I have today. This is the pattern, the hand of recovery. Different color glass, stained glass I use around the borders of the triangle to make the circle. And then there's a triangle in the middle on which I've engraved unity, service, and recovery. And it goes into the piece here. It is a beveled piece of glass, so as the light shines through, it will throw prisms, rainbows of color all around, and like a crystal. And then the hands to me talk stronger than words, for me in a nurturing, positive manner. We're not alone. It's helping, it's nurturing, the hands are compassionate. So anyway, let me start. I've already cut all the pieces and done the engraving, and then I put a copper foil around each piece of glass so that the solder will bind these pieces of glass together on the copper. Solder will only stick to metal, it won't stick to the glass. Copper, I'm not sure if it only sticks to copper, I'm sure it doesn't. There's other metals and different kinds of solder and flux. But for stained glass soldering, we use copper, and I use solder that is tin and lead. Thus I have the fans going above me so that the fumes won't come right up my nostrils. So anyway, I just want to make sure that before I tack the pieces together, they are as close fitting to what I had planned. We don't want big gaps of space that I have to fill in with solder because not nice. So anyway, let me go ahead and do this one. My soldering iron is hot. I have some flux there to clean my my soldering iron. I don't know if that's really a good idea, but I've always done it that way. I have a wet sponge so that I could take off some of the corrosion. I also use a steel wool to just kind of clean some of the oxidation off my solder. Put a little bit of flux on there. Again, you know what? I've never taken a class, so this is just what I do, right or wrong. Okay, so first I start with a 50-50 solder, 50 lead, 50 tin, and that's for what I call tinning and tacking the pieces together. So let's just tack here. Let me get this guy so that it's all gonna line up nicely. I will end up putting a wire hook attached. I will solder on chain so that this piece can be hung up in a window or free hanging. And then the little fingers right there. So taking my time, not burning myself because it is really hot. I have tacked the pieces together. Okay, so before I lift it up, I am going to clean with the flux all the oxidation once again off the copper foil so that I can cover, or what we call tinning, all the copper with solder. Okay. So can you see? I don't know if you can really see this, but any copper that I put around each piece of stained glass gets a solder tinning. Okay, so anyway, Unity Service and Recovery is what I engraved onto the triangle, and that is a symbol of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am not a spokesperson for Alcoholics Anonymous. I just know that when I couldn't stop drinking, Alcoholics Anonymous was magical for me. I learned that I have a disease. I didn't have a problem with self-will or self-control, which I thought, and I loathed myself for that. I actually went into rehab for 28 plus days when I was living in Lake Tahoe. That's where I bottomed out. I went to Reno to go to rehab, where I was introduced to the disease of alcoholism, and I was introduced to the program and the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, let me tell you, it just, it wasn't gonna work for me. That was my first thought. This is, when I read the 12 steps in the basement of the hospital where I was in rehab, and it talked about God, I said, well, I flunked this. And you know, for me, it was all about excelling, being the perfectionist, and what you thought of me. I never really had any sense of self-worth or self-value or self-esteem. It was always about what you thought of me. So that's how I lived my life for 43 years before I got sober. Okay, so this side is tinned. This side is not. So I'm gonna turn it upside down. I am gonna put flux. It's an acid. And of course I should be wearing gloves, but I do have my eye stuff on, yeah? My PPE to protect my eyes, because solder, when I solder, sometimes it bubbles and, what's the word? You know, when you put something in the fry pan and it sparks out, that's not the word. But anyway, that's what it does. And it really hurts when it lands on your skin, but I, blessed that I've been, it's never popped into my eye. But I don't want to chance it, so I wear my glasses. Plus, I probably wouldn't be able to see without them. Anyway, because I tried so long to get sober on my own and I couldn't figure out why I had to drink every day, I finally asked for help from my boss and went into rehab, again finding out that alcoholism is a disease. And oh, see, there it did. It splattered. That's the word, splattered. Little dots of hot solder. Anyway, it was wonderful to be introduced to the 12 Steps with Alcoholics Anonymous, and to this day, the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, or any other support group, a lot of support groups use the 12 steps. It doesn't have to be AA, it could be Narcotics Anonymous, or food addictions, or gambling, or sexholics, or any of that. There's just 12 really simple, beautiful steps to follow in order and I use it on a daily basis. I live the steps of AA, and today I have a really free kind of life. I don't have to drink today, which is amazing to me that I drank for so long, and then I go into rehab and the obsession, what we call the obsession, was lifted. I did not have to drink anymore. I could have walked out. I was in downtown Reno, right where the casinos are, and you could go and get alcohol for free 24/7. And I was in my 40s, so I didn't even need my driver's license for ID. But anyway, that wasn't, I thought about it, but it was like not even an option. It was just a thought. Okay, so anyway, both sides have been tinned. Now I'm gonna tin the edges, the perimeter, and it's hot, okay? So, after I got out of rehab, I did what was suggested because nothing that I could think of was working for me. And I went to AA. I went back to Tahoe where I was living, and found the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous local, where the glass meets. I always put a little extra bead there because I want it to be smooth and no holes, no crevices. This will all be done over and over again till it's really smooth. And solder does turn to liquid, and it's a hot liquid. Let's just say like lava. Hot, hot, hot. So I went to AA and did what was suggested. I got a sponsor with whom I worked the 12 steps. I got into service, got to secretary a weekly meeting. It was a 7-day-a-week meeting, a couple times a day. That's hot. And after a while, I was able to sponsor other women. I worked the 12 steps with them and see them grow and see them have rays of hope in their eyes and see their lives change, and to watch that self-worth, that self-esteem, I am worthy, to come into their lives. Okay, this was 50-50 solder. Now I'm going to go to a 60-40 solder, which is 60% tin and 40% lead. Tinning, I use, it's a little bit cheaper and a little bit harder to run a smooth bead with that proportion of tin and lead. 60-40, you could run a smoother bead so it looks more finished and not all rough, not like stucco. So I'm going to put some of this 60-40 solder around the edge of this piece. So, where was I? I just noticed that my life was changing so much, being sober. It was hard. It was hard that first year. I'm going to put little dots of solder around here so I could run a really nice smooth bead without having to lift the soldering iron from the copper. And one day at a time, I told myself, just don't drink for today. I couldn't tell myself that I wasn't ever going to drink again. Because I would rebel against that, or definitely miss that feeling of, okay, you gotta say, well, the booze makes one just chill out, and I've found different ways now that I can chill out just quiet myself, little prayer and meditation, getting in the moment, shutting my head off. I've learned to live from my heart and not my head. And then to have a higher power. Okay, there's that God thing again. And when I was in rehab and I saw some of the steps, the 12 steps, and it talked about God. Well, in AA, we're given the gift of, okay, get smooth, baby, making up a higher power of our own choice. It could be anything. It could be your God that you learned when you were younger and went to church. A lot of people that I've met, that God didn't serve them. It was punishing. So they had to unlearn that God or get another God, or just change their mindset about it. And that's what we have to do. We as alcoholics have to change everything, change our mindset, because we're like really selfish, and ooh, it dripped off and not on my leg. Thank you very much. So this is where I don't want to see a big crevasse. The hand of recovery. We are never alone. Okay, so that dripped down, but that's okay. It won't stick to the glass. All right, so that side has been, all the edges, the perimeter have been tinned. That's hot stuff. Little bit of drips. Actually, some of these bigger things I could just put back on here because there was quite a bit that dripped down. Unity, service, and recovery are the words that we have on our AA triangle. I'm going to now, on all these joints, make it look like a solid bead, a piece of lead. And that's the look that we're trying to go through. Originally stained glass was leaded glass. It had strips of lead that held the pieces together. I've done the lead method, but I really prefer the copper foil method. Leading, you have to have a workbench on which you need to use horseshoe nails and hammer it into the table so that the pieces don't move around. So this is a rough bead, and then when it's done, I will run a smooth bead. Had the rooms of AA not been there for me when I got out of rehab or when I was ready to get sober, I could have never have done this. When I first walked into the room in Lake Tahoe, I was scared shitless because I knew that I was going to know people in there. I lived in that city for 30 years, and I was a grocery checker, and everybody buys groceries. And my kids were on different sporting teams. And so we just knew a lot of people. And then once I walked in there and I did see people that I knew, and they saw me, and they came to me and welcomed me, put their arm around me and didn't ask any questions, I just felt like I was at home. I had found the place where I finally fit. It's a wonderful thing. And they didn't want anything back except for my well-being. And if I go out again, they still love me. No questions asked. And they'll be there for me when I'm ready to return. So unity, service is key. Getting out of myself, getting out of my head. If I think my problems are so horrendous, all I have to do is go help another suffering alcoholic or just another suffering human being. And that's what service is all about. And to keep the rooms of AA open for forever, for anytime anybody needs help and knows that they can't do it alone. Some people don't use Alcoholics Anonymous. Some people get sober with or without the 12 steps, and then they go to meetings and then they don't, and they could do it. But for me, it's no longer about drinking. It's just about staying sane, because I know that my life, my thinking is what got me in trouble. My rationalization, my not having a higher power, being in control all the time, having resentments, being negative. I don't have to do that anymore. Recovery is key. Unity, service, and recovery. So I will switch this back on once I get this all done. I've already run a bead on this side, but I didn't smooth it out yet. But you don't want to sit here and watch me do this. And now I'm going to do the other side, smooth it all out, put the chain on, and I'll show you the finished product. Alrighty, I have all 3 pieces that have been soldered and have been patinaed. I put the black patina on the silver solder, and so all I have to do is polish. I'm finding that the easiest and really good polish is this car polish. It's wadding polish, never dull. So I just put it all around. It has some kind of stuff on it, polish, just wherever there's solder. And then get the ring. So I'm almost done, and it's really special for me to be able to make these hands of recovery for a friend of mine who has been instrumental in my recovery. She's such a good role model. You know, it just reminds me that life isn't always easy, and life doesn't always go the way that we want it to or how we plan. The best thing for me is just to not plan, to not have expectations, because expectations cause disappointment. So if I could just go with the flow, it just makes for an easier life, and me knowing that my higher power is in control. And what I need to do today, my gut will tell me, okay, this is where I'm pulled. Now I'm lucky enough to do that because I'm not going and punching a clock at work like I used to, being semi-retired now. So I could do this, and if I could be of service, which is sharing my experience, strength, and hope with others, that to still have hope and self-worth and self-esteem, to let the guilt and the shame go. It doesn't serve us. To live in a positive manner, and again, go with the flow and stay in the moment, then I've served my purpose for the day. If I've given one person just a ray of hope for the day, then I know I did good. Yeah? So when I make these pieces, or any of my pieces, I try to make a piece that offers some kind of message that is not only a beautiful piece of art, but that will be inspiring. That is my goal, because I love to work. I love to create out of stained glass, and also the mosaics. And I like to eat. So making a little bit of money is good too, but I just want to have a simple life and just have my basic needs met. And again, I cannot live in fear, worry, any of that, because I know that God's got my back and everything's perfect in God's world. Almost done, and it's gonna just hang. That's the green one. The yellow one just needs to be polished. buffed. And there's the orange kind of red one. Sweet. Aloha.